U.S. Army once studied whether consciousness was actually a part of your body or just something the brain receives. Spoiler alert, the report didn't say the brain creates consciousness. And that's not the conspiracy part. Wait until you hear what people say happened in our schools. If you're between 20 and 40 and those elementary school hearing tests just unlocked a memory for you, hit the follow button and stay tuned for part 2. Let's talk about what the Gateway experience actually was, and why the U.S. Army would even care. Rewind to the mid-1970s, a civilian researcher named Robert Monroe, who was studying human consciousness, developed something called the Gateway experience. It was designed to help people explore altered states of awareness using audio tones. No drugs, no hypnosis, no religion, just sound. During a time when the U.S. and the Soviet Union were racing for any possible advantage, the Army took interest in the claims that this actually worked. So they enlisted an intelligent officer to study Gateway and answer a few questions, one of them being basically, is this complete nonsense? And the answer might surprise you. It wasn't. We know this because of a detailed U.S. Army analysis written in 1983. It was later declassified and released publicly in 2003 as part of a larger CIA document release. What they found wasn't simple, and they were very clear. It wasn't harmless either. In part 3, I break down what the Declassified report actually says. A U.S. Army intelligence officer studied the Gateway experience to see if human consciousness could operate outside the body for military use. And guess what? He concluded there was evidence it worked and said it was useful for the Army. And then he wrote this at the end of his report. This study is not designed to be the last word on the subject. And do you think that was the last word we heard on that subject? Here's the question that no one answers. Why was that the last word we ever heard? Did the military really stop studying something after validating it? Or did they just change the name and keep going? This declassified CIA document, a U.S. Army intelligence officer opens up by saying, he tasked me to provide an assessment of the Gateway experience in terms of its mechanics and ultimate practicality. That matters because they didn't ask him if it worked. They were asking him to explain the mechanism, how it works, and why it works. The rest of page 1 is him explaining what he had to do to answer that. In plain language, he says, to understand Gateway, I couldn't rely on spirituality or religion. I had to use biology, then neuroscience, then quantum physics. He talks about studying the brain, consciousness, and something called hemispheric synchronization, basically getting both sides of the brain working together. And he's very clear about one thing. He intentionally removes anything mystical or occult so that this can be evaluated objectively by the military. On the second page, things get interesting. He acknowledges that experiences like this show up across religions, Eastern traditions, Western traditions, Christianity, Buddhism, Hindu philosophy, but he makes a very specific point. He says the Gateway doesn't contradict religion. In other words, humans have been describing similar states of consciousness for thousands of years. We just use different language. And he also warns that people might reject Gateway not because it's wrong, but because it challenges how we understand reality. And then he ends with this line. This study is not designed to be the last word on the subject. He actually says the structure is valid, concepts are sound, and that it could be useful to other Army personnel. So here's the real question. If this had value and it was useful enough for a 29-page Army analysis, why did we never hear about it again? Did it stop, or did it change names, departments, or contractors? Now, there are theories that this was used on kids or secretly deployed in our schools. Now, to be clear, there's no direct evidence of that in this document, but lack of evidence doesn't always mean something never happened. Sometimes it means records didn't survive or weren't meant to. Let me know if you want me to do a deep dive on that. This was only the first 2 pages of a 29-page document, and yes, some pages appear to be missing. If you want a deeper breakdown of how the Gateway process actually works on the brain, and what the rest of this document says, hit follow. And please consider leaving a comment below and showing support for the channel.